Thank you for sticking around. My name is Jambu Palaniappan. I'm the general manager for Uber Eastern Europe and East Africa. It's really a privilege to be here in Istanbul today to talk to you a little bit about our business, who we are, where we come from, and our vision for the future. It's particularly relevant in the context of this session and tourism, which has been a huge driver of growth for our business. Generally, the benefits of a product like Uber in the lens of a global interconnected world has been the ability to use the same product, the same application in any of the 300 plus cities and 60 countries that we operate. It's been particularly relevant for our business in Turkey, which, because of the strong tourism sector in this city, Istanbul, the country, has been a particular driver of growth. Before we get into that, I think sometimes it's helpful to just start with a bit of background about what Uber is and our mission. It's really quite a simple exercise. Push a button on your phone and the car comes in a matter of minutes. The way that the app works is it's mobile only. So from the opening of the screen to a car on the way, goals for that to be in about 15 seconds. And what you can see is that the actual use of technology can increase the faith that customers have in the product. So particularly when you're a tourist, you're visiting a new city, you don't speak the language, the technology can actually communicate between the rider and the driver. In the case where oftentimes tourists are charged different prices, price transparency, where everybody pays the same price, is included as part of how the Uber transaction works. And then oftentimes in transportation particularly, but in many sectors, accountability is limited. So each trip is rated on a 5-star scale, and that rating is actually a two-way rating. So drivers rate drivers, and riders rate drivers. That basic model, that basic kind of product flow, is what we're built on. It's something that we've narrowed down to in terms of focus, because that is the core of the product experience. So in 2010, we were active in one city, just in San Francisco. We started thinking about expansion quite slowly. We wanted to get it right. So the first 12 months of our business, we only operated in one city. The nature of our business is it's a marketplace platform where you have to balance supply and demand. So if you're leaning too far one way or the other, too many cars on the road and not enough customers, or too many customers and not enough cars on the road, the marketplace is out of balance. Earnings are not strong enough for the drivers, prices are not competitive enough for consumers. We figured that out and we scaled it. So you can see here a map of our global footprint in the cities that we operated around the world. There's been a big focus on expansion of our business because we believe that the fundamentals of that marketplace are very similar city to city, even if the cities themselves are obviously different. One of the things that we say at Uber, one of our core values, is to celebrate cities. And the idea is that our product is going to have some fundamental non-negotiables. It's going to be easy to use, price transparent, on demand. But how we deliver that product will vary market to market. So in Istanbul, for example, we have a UberBoat product that's used to get across the Bosphorus in busy peak times of traffic. We've done products with motorcycle taxis in Paris, and we're thinking in the future about other localized products that allow us to use the existing infrastructure of current cities. So this is where we are today, 361 cities, 68 countries. This goes up by the day, it's hard to keep track of. But the growth, I think, is really driven by one simple thing, which is consumers raising their hand and saying, when is Uber coming to my city? And for us, that's one of the key measures we use when we think about expansion and where we go next. One of the main reasons we came to Turkey was a significant number of customers that actually downloaded and used the app before we even got here. I think Istanbul is one of the most exciting cities for our business, and Turkey is by far one of the most exciting potential countries for Uber. I think when you think about increasing urbanization and more people moving toward large cities, there is clear opportunity to build new transport networks that complement existing transport infrastructure, increasing the number of alternatives for customers, where they may drive their own car, use a bus or metro, use a taxi, walk, use Uber as well. And that combination of services can make a city much more livable, bring significant environmental impacts, increase the frequency of use of shared services, and therefore have a significant impact on traffic, congestion, carbon emissions. There's also significant job creation opportunity here. Generally, what we've seen in some of the larger cities that we operate in is tens of thousands of jobs created. In Egypt right now, in Cairo, we're creating like 2,000 new jobs per month on the platform. And for us, that model of economic empowerment and entrepreneurship for driver partners is one of our core motivations. And for me personally, I think what gets me most excited about the prospects of the future. The other piece of this that's particularly compelling is that historically, this industry, there has not been a great degree of transparency around financials. The transactions that happen, payments that go through, and sometimes not sort of full transparency around how those revenues are reported. But in a world where every transaction is cashless, digital, there's huge benefits to governments as well in the fact that this industry that's historically been, maybe not fully connected to the banking system, coming in. So this is a map of Istanbul with each blue dot representing the location of a rider when they open the app. Now this is interesting and I think very cool because it shows the growth of that across the city. But I think this is even cooler. This is trips over time. So the left is November 2014, and the right is November 2015. And you can see the spread, both geographically and in density, of those trips. That's just over 1 year. So we're seeing huge expansion opportunities across the city, the Asian side, further north, the airport areas. And I think it shows that the frequency of usage is actually increasing on a week-to-week basis. This is a common theme we see in many cities because I think people start to get used to using the app more frequently. The liquidity of the product actually increases because more cars are on the road and drivers are actually able to earn comparatively more. Prices can also come down correspondingly as that efficiency increases. Travel is a core component of our business. We are, I think, heavily influenced by the experience of using Uber outside of one's home city or home country. The idea of having one app that works anywhere in the world with your same preferred payment method is, I think, pretty compelling, particularly in the lens of tourism, where transparency and access is particularly important. In Istanbul, about 30% of Uber riders are tourists. In Dubai, that's about 40%. The opportunities, I think, in those two cities particularly, but more broadly, I think show that tourism is an incredible growth lever for us. Some of the most frequented pickup and drop-off locations in Istanbul are some of the touristic destinations, and the frequency of use by tourists is also increasing significantly. 30% of users being tourists, that's a very, very high number for us. And I think it also shows that the opportunities for tourists to experience the city in a way that they're already familiar with from their home country is quite an interesting proposition. There's also a question about being in a new city and being comfortable about what service you're using and what it looks like. So these are some of the things that we've built and done in order to ensure a safe and reliable experience for both residents and visitors alike. There's a very stringent driver application process. There is no anonymity, so you know who your driver is, the rating of that driver is, and every trip is booked and transparent. It's always on the map, right? So everything is based on a pickup and destination entry of the rider, and that model has transcended into become the expectation for many other services and competitors as well. We have a product called Share My ETA, which is built into the Uber app, which actually lets you real-time share your location with a friend or family member during the trip, so they can see where you are and how long it will be until you arrive. And the feedback mechanism that I messaged, which is that all trips require a rating for customers to drivers, and drivers to customers. So we learn very quickly what drivers need to do to improve, and also sometimes what customers need to do to improve. Play this video.
I've been living in Istanbul for 4 years now, and of course I travel a lot from Istanbul to other cities, San Francisco, Dublin, London, wherever it may be. So whenever I go on a business trip, one of the first things I do is to get a SIM card and pull up the Uber app. So I was just in Dublin for a conference, and of course I had no idea how to get from the airport to the conference center. And I called myself an Uber cab. The cab driver pulled up from the silver Mercedes S-Class, super nice guy, took me around the city and gave me an awesome tour. And in Istanbul, as you know, there are a lot of traffic. It's really hard to get from point A to point B. And owning a car has its own difficulties. So instead of owning a car, I rely on Uber to get to and from work, to get to conferences, dinners, on a night out, wherever it may be. I have Uber there to help me out.
One of the questions that we get asked a lot is about alternatives. And one of the things we did here last year with a bit of fun was in the summer to put the UberBoat product on the road. And what that is you can request from the Uber app, boat will come pick you up at one of the marinas and take you where you need to go. To be very honest with you, we did it as an experiment to see how it would work, what the pickup from customers would be, and it was actually outstanding. So we decided to make it a permanent full-time product. And so for us, the idea of local alternatives in cities where traffic, congestion, and market exist is always something we're eager to explore. We, in the summer, in response to our customers and their holiday plans, opened Uber in Bodrum. And we're able to use the Uber app and request cars during your holiday period. This is something we've done frequently across several countries. And a big part of the future is also about where you can use Uber in situations where you may need it. Apps that you're already using here, Google Maps, lifestyle apps like Zomato, airline apps when you're traveling to the airport, and actually integrate the Uber experience into those through our API. And that, I think, is an interesting second question, which is, where do you need transportation and how can you integrate that into the experiences you already use? We started a pilot with Facebook Messenger in the US as well. We get a lot of questions about our vision for the future and what we think we can actually take to the next level. So getting a car in 5 minutes is great, but what is the vision? And one of the questions that I always think about is how we can solve this problem, right? And I think it's particularly relevant here. I'm a very punctual person, but the only city I've ever missed flights in is Istanbul because of this. Just thinking about this and wondering, how can you take all of those cars and reduce this problem? And you can't really see this picture, but I imagine that many of these cars are traveling with just one person, if not all. That just seems very inefficient. particularly because many of those people are probably moving from the same place to the same place. So what if we could do something about it? And so our idea is something called UberBoat. This is now live in several dozen cities around the world. But the idea is, after a Uber driver partner picks up a passenger, before they drop that person off, en route they pick up a second passenger who is on the way. And they drop off the first passenger, but before they drop off the second passenger, they pick up the third. And this is all calculated through an algorithm that allows for efficient trip routes and unwasted time. What this means is that multiple people are sharing a car, and because of the features that I mentioned, no anonymity, cashless payment, there is less risk than you may ordinarily feel sharing a car with a commuter. But that trip then can significantly reduce the need for individual cars, fewer people driving around alone, and more earnings potential for the driver, because the driver is busier and the prices can be lower for customers. Shared cars are interesting because what they mean is fewer empty seats and less duplication, significant reduction in congestion, but also environmental benefits as well. Lower prices actually can make transport more accessible for people in rural or underserved areas of cities, particularly where existing infrastructure isn't quite reaching it. And this is, a practical example. So over 8 months in Los Angeles, 5 million trips, over 500,000 liters of petrol saved, over 12 million kilometers of driving saved, 1,400 metric tons of CO2 saved. So a real tangible impact to the problem. It's still early days for us as a company, right? It's still just 5 years old, thinking about the vision for the future and who we are. But how we can impact that problem and help cities take back congestion, traffic, space we devote to parking is the mission that I think will drive us through the next 5 years. Thanks so much.